Well, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
For all kinds of reasons, this was such a hard week. It was such a hard week for our people. It's a hard week for our congregation. And I thought that I would walk you through what it was like to be a rabbi this week. I woke up, as I think most, if not all of you did, on Monday morning to horrific news about the murder of the 6 hostages. I'll say this, I was a little bit numb at first. I didn't quite know what to make of it. And I wrote a sermon on Monday about generosity, I'll give it another year, not now. I worked on it on Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday, I woke up mad. Mad doesn't cut it. I woke up furious. I woke up in such a rage. And so I wrote an angry sermon on Wednesday. And on Thursday, I wrote a different one. And that's the sermon I want to share with you tonight. But first, I'll share with you the sermon I'm not giving. The angry sermon. And I'm not giving you the sermon, but I do want to say that this week's Torah portion, it would have been perfect for an angry sermon. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Shoftim. It's our Torah portion. Shoftim is literally judges. It's a Torah portion about justice. This is the Torah portion, if you're familiar with the line, justice, do you know the line? You shall pursue. There's another equally famous line in this week's Torah portion, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. There's a less well-known phrase, but it shows up in this week's Torah portion, that we're commanded to sweep out evil from our midst. That's in this week's Torah portion 3 times. This phrase only shows up 5 times in the entire Torah. 3 of them are in this week's Torah portion. And so I woke up on Wednesday angry. And I ended Wednesday, I was in a way. I got angrier on Wednesday when I heard from a college student who, on his first day of class, experienced a level of anti-Semitism unlike anything he had ever experienced in his life. He told me about it. I got angrier when I read about 7,000 people marching through New York, some of them waving Hamas and Hezbollah flags on the day of some of these hostages' funerals. I got angrier with each misleading headline that I read. I was in such a place come the end of Wednesday. And on Wednesday, I wanted you to be angry with me. I wanted you to be furious with me. And I have to say, I was probably going to say things that not everybody here agrees with. And okay, I was ready for the emails. I was ready for the phone calls. I went to bed on Wednesday thinking, just bring it on. I was in a way on Wednesday. And on Thursday, I woke up and I read the Haftarah portion. For those of you who are not familiar with the Haftarah portion, with this tradition, there's 54 Torah portions. Each one is connected to an accompanying selection from the book of prophets that almost always, emphasis on the almost tonight, puts an exclamation point on the message of the Torah portion. It emphasizes the key theme of whatever Torah portion it's commenting on. Except for this week. This week we read from Isaiah chapter 51, where Isaiah is prophesizing the death and destruction of so much of Israel. And the Haftarah portion begins not with anger, but with Isaiah speaking on behalf of God. God says, I am the God who comforts you. It's a different message. Usually the Haftarah portion, again, emphasizes the theme of the Torah portion. But our Haftarah portion is so different. Both Isaiah and our Torah portion are about the severity of loss, the severity of death, the finality of what so many of us experienced on Monday. So why are they so different? How does Shoftim, the Torah portion, and Isaiah have such a different take on that same experience of loss? Now, people experience loss differently, and Cantor and I know this full well. We've walked alongside you, so many of you, through moments when you've had to say goodbye to the people who are closest to you. I'm looking around the room, and I see many of you. Let me make this lighter for a minute. I know this is a little bit heavy, but rabbis are known for giving unsolicited advice. I try to give as little as possible, but sometimes I can't help myself. One of the things that I see happen all the time, or one of the pieces of advice that I will often share with people who've just lost someone very close to them. This is at an intake. An intake is where a rabbi or a cantor gets together with the immediate family of someone who's passed away, and we learn about the deceased's story. I will often, it depends, I will end that conversation with some unsolicited advice, which is just for the mourners, to be nice to each other. Just to be nice to each other. Because one of the things that happens in grief, when you lose someone close to you, and maybe this wasn't your experience, if you, God forbid, you've lost somebody close to you, but this happens more often than you think, is that people are just angry. There's a bitterness, there's this rawness of grief. And a lot of times that anger is directed towards other people who are grieving too, right? There's something about grief that can make people so very angry. So be nice to each other, I say. But what is it about grief that makes people so angry? What is it about loss and death that can bring out the rage in somebody? And again, this is not everybody, but it happens often. I have a theory I'll share with you. I didn't fact check this. This is just my own observation, or my own guess, which is that death can be not just horrible and permanent, but incredibly disempowering. You can spend your life taking care of your career and your job and your finances, and in every part of your life, there's something about death that rips out that illusion of control from underneath your feet. And I wonder if anger is our way of yanking back the control that's been taken from us. I wonder if that's our way of saying, about this, I have some kind of agency still. I can still do something in the world, right? That's what anger, I wonder if that's what anger can do. Anger is our attempt at bringing agency back. But for anyone who's been angry, for anyone who's been really angry, you know that anger will not get you where you need to go. Anger, in fact, just makes you more isolated. It makes you more lonely, which leads to more anger, which leads to more isolation, which leads to more loneliness on the other side. Anger will not get you where you need to go in this time of death. So I want to tell you about grief. And I want to tell you about Jewish grief. Because if you've ever observed the loss of a loved one here at Washington Hebrew, you'll know that the first thing we'll do, and I'll walk you through this, is you'll come to Washington Hebrew about an hour early. And you and your immediate family are going to be in the library. And people are going to come in. They're going to share their condolences. They're going to give you a hug. They're going to give you a kiss. And then they're going to come in here, and they're going to wait for you. There are going to be a lot of people in the chapel, but there's just a couple of people in the library. Those people whose lives have been turned upside down. Those are the people who will wear a kriya ribbon, a black ribbon that symbolizes that this is not just a sad day for them. This is the beginning of a chapter of grief and of loss. We honor that core group of mourners through this wearing of a kriya ribbon. Modern psychology has caught up with this idea, actually, that there is an inner core of grief, and then there are these rings of grief that emanate outward. And as I'm thinking about these 6 hostages whose lives were so tragically ripped from us, there are core mourners, people who are truly grieving in a way that I can't even imagine. Children have lost parents. Nieces and nephews have lost uncles and aunts. Parents have lost children. And their lives are forever torn apart. That's that inner circle. And then one ring out, our neighbors and colleagues and dear friends who will remember this moment for the rest of their lives. And then one ring out from that is a nation that has been terrorized through the psychological torment, the likes of which I can't even conceive, but I read about every single day. And then there's us, you and me, here in America, thousands of miles away. And even though their grief is not like our grief, we are grieving in a different way tonight too. And there might be even one other layer after this, because each of us hopefully is blessed with non-Jewish friends who, even if they can't understand what it feels like to be Jewish right now, are with us by our side and who want to understand. Anger can push everyone away, but if we can sit in that grief for a moment, all of a sudden, there's a world who is grieving with us. Anger can make you so small, but grief in this time of loss can expand. By the way, I'm not saying there's nothing to be angry about, God forbid. There is that sermon I didn't give. But grief can do what anger never could. Grief can make us a family. And so, be in grief with me tonight. Be in grief. We can be angry by ourselves, but be in grief tonight, because it is grief that will help us walk through this moment. It is death and loss that can rip a hole in our lives, in our sense of security, in our sense of agency, in our sense of comfort, in our sense that the world makes sense. Death takes all of that away and leaves a giant crater in return. But grief can open up that door for everyone you know and love, and people you've never met, to step into that moment with you and walk with you through the valley of the shadow of death. When you're angry, you're alone. When you grieve, we are together. And so tonight we're a family. We're a family with our congregation. We're a family with the Jewish people. Tonight we are sisters with those who grieve. We are brothers with those who grieve. We are Achim. We are family. And together as family, please God, through this moment, we will begin to heal. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. The whole house of Israel who are in distress and captivity, who wander over the sea and land. God have mercy on them. And bring them from distress to comfort, from darkness to light, from slavery to redemption, now, swiftly, and soon.